Good morning, traders. Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Trader Bacon Show. I am your host, Gates Adams, and we have a fun, exciting show for you today. A couple of things I need to let you know. Next week, we will not be having any Trader Bacon. It's Memorial Day, and I will be traveling, so enjoy, hopefully, that time with your families, and let's remember what's truly important as we celebrate Memorial Day. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another fun show for you. I'll remind you guys at the end of the show. But thanks for joining us today. We've got some pretty cool things happening right now. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Apex Trader Funding 400. Well, I should congratulate Apex Trader Funding traders. $493 million in the hands of traders like you and me. Almost $500 million. I've been doing this countdown for the last few weeks. I'm super excited to hit that threshold. I know it's going to be big. Hopefully, we'll have some big celebrations. And I don't know. I can't really predict anything. But with 2 weeks between now and the next episode, I think there's a reasonable enough chance that threshold may go down between now and the next one. So keep an eye out for that. You can always see that update on apextraderfunding.com. Speaking of apextraderfunding.com, make sure you head that way right now. 80% off any size evaluation. Some particularly big discounts on the big boys, the 150, 250, and 300s. Make sure you use promo code Benzinga at checkout. That will always get you the best price available on any options that they have. This sale lasts for another day and a half. This wraps up tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Time is running out. Make sure you take full advantage of that before that goes away. Also, I did not have an episode of the Forge Trader podcast this past week. The week got away from me. It was a particularly challenging week in a few ways, and I'll even let you guys know I did actually blow my 9 PAs this past week. I'm a little bummed, but ready to start fresh and start over. Working on some $300,000 accounts now. I'll let you guys know how that goes as I progress in my journey as well. But keep an eye out for a new episode of the Forge Trader podcast this week on Thursday, where I'll talk a little bit more about the struggles that I had last week, what I'm doing about them, and what I'm looking forward to moving forward. You can always get updates on pretty much everything Forge Trader at theforgetrader.com/join. Be sure to check that out. All of that said, enough shameless self-promotion. I want to introduce you guys to my buddy Christian. Christian is one more thing. Yes, we are going to be giving away 3 evaluations on this show. And congratulations to last week's winners, Alex, Kenny, and Surjit. Thankfully, I have help in the background making sure I stay on task. Thank you so much for that. And I want to introduce you guys to Christian. Christian is a phenomenal trader. He trades a little bit differently than most of the traders we've had on the show before. And we teased that a little bit in the promo if you happen to see that. But stick around because we're going to have some fun today. So welcome, Christian, on today's episode of the Trader Bacon Show. Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Are you ready? Because the Trader Bacon Show starts right now. Christian, good morning, man. What's going on?
What's good? Let's get some bacon.
Sizzling today, man. John, good to see you. All the rest of you guys out there in chat land, make sure to say hello and let us know if you've got anything that you want to get out of this. This is going to be an interesting episode, I think, because of some of the dynamics about the way that Christian trades, and we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. But Christian, first and foremost, thank you for hanging out with us today and sharing some of your insights and some of the keys that have brought you to your level of success now as a trader with Apex Trader Funding. Now, first and foremost, man, how long have you actually been trading at this point?
So if we say trading with Apex in particular, or trading futures specifically,
I'll say trading total.
In total, some form of trading / investing since I was 12.
Okay, so that brings about a bit of a different dynamic. Obviously, you weren't. I guess you had somebody helping you with the dynamics of executing trades. How did you actually go about that?
So what happened was my dad had an old brokerage account, and so at 12 years old, he was giving me books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Kid, Poor Kid, which I think a lot of people have.
Good early education.
Exactly. And so he gave me his old brokerage account and said, have fun with no instructions. And there were a couple $100 in there. And back then it's TD Ameritrade, but it was called TD Waterhouse.
Right. I remember those days, actually.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah. So I was taking the Warren Buffett approach of buy things
Hmm.
hold for a long time.
Okay.
Granted, with that very first brokerage, I ended up blowing that account simply because I didn't know of trade fees.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Key
it was
components.
exactly $10 each way makes like an account with a couple $100, you know, non-existent very quick.
So that was obviously that first experience. Doesn't sound like it necessarily lasted too terribly long. How long was it from there before you actually got back into the world of trading?
So around like high school, that's when I was really starting to work, like,
Mhm.
part-time jobs and things during the summer as a lifeguard. And so I would take literally all those funds and I would just put them in a brokerage account. And instead of day trading, because obviously there's the pattern day trade rule,
Mhm.
I would swing. So I would
Mhm.
hold things for maybe like a week, a month,
Right.
however long. I always made sure that I was in things that, again, like I believed in, like
Mhm.
McDonald's or whatever. So if it did go against me, I would essentially just wait
Mhm.
until eventually the market would move up, and then I'd close that position. So I don't know if I could necessarily say I was a trader
Mhm.
in in the spirit of trading, but more like an investor, short-term investor, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a different journey than we typically see on here, and I love the different dynamics that we get to explore on the show. Now, at some point, you moved into the world of day trading. Let's talk a little bit about that. What did you first start day trading? What instruments?
So when I truly, truly started day trading, this is where I lost like a bunch and kind of what hooked me. Um,
The
I
irony.
would go on, yeah, yes. I went on YouTube and there was a trader, I think Ricky Gutierrez. Anyway, he had his own strategy for day trading. I paid for his course, learned everything, and then started day trading his system. And so he was looking at crude oil and natural gas inventories and making plays based off of those. Now, this wasn't with futures. This was still, um, you know, equities market,
Right.
DGAS and gas and WTI, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I had a good amount of success. I got that account up to somewhere between 70 and 80K.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly how old I was. Maybe like 20, 29, 30, doesn't matter. But up to that amount. And then I had one day where the news report, I thought it was in my favor and things were supposed to go one way and it didn't. And I ended up losing 26K on just that trade.
Gotcha.
And I didn't want to realize that. So I was like, let me just hold it overnight and hopefully it comes back. And when I came back the next morning, the first number in my account instead of being a 7 or 8 was a 3, and I just closed all positions. I went in bed and I just laid there and cried. Like, man, I spent so many years building this account to blow it in a day and a half, basically.
Man, so how did you get over that, man? What did you do to get back into it?
Um, I don't know, honestly. Just living life normally. Honestly, I'll say I intended to never trade again.
Yeah,
I
I've been
said
there.
trading was stupid. Why would I do this to myself? I'm just
Right.
gonna go back to my swing trades, my short-term investments, basically, and build my account. It's gonna take me a while, but I'll do that. So I was a little bit lucky in that when this happened was 2019 around Thanksgiving, so just before COVID. So when COVID happened, I was in cash. Granted, I had already lost like a bunch, right?
Yeah.
But I was in cash, so I was able to invest everything
Mhm.
um, very optimally at that time when everything was dropping at COVID. And then,
So,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
No, so then because I had all my funds tied up, I then started looking for like, okay, what can I do in the meantime? And
Mhm.
trading, I don't know, I think I'm a bit of an addict, as many of us are. And so I went back to it, and on YouTube, I saw Brian Watt and Trades by Matt, and they were trading futures, MES and NQ and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And so I decided, let me give the prop firms a run since it's not technically my funds.
Mhm. So, was that really ultimately what got you back into the swing of things, knowing that you could do this without putting up what was left of your savings or of your account?
Exactly. It was
Okay.
knowing that I could. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. Um,
Yeah, if you're called to trading, that's look. I mean, there's people who are in big cash positions and they've got enough experience, and that's great. All the more power to them. I don't see myself being there for a while, seeing as I know my habits and some of the things that I still struggle with. There's still a long way to go. But for an aspiring trader just coming in, you've now found that you can do this as a funded trader. Where did you go from there? I mean, you develop a strategy that you were working with, or how did this sort of develop for you from here?
So I tried to take what I knew about, all my stocks and all that stuff and make it shorter term.
Hmm.
And then somehow apply that to futures, which obviously didn't work very well because trading a stock is very different from trading the
Of
futures
course.
market. Yeah.
Right.
So then I went to YouTube and I went down the rabbit hole of looking up every single YouTube channel you can think of. And I literally, so I kid you not, I paid for a subscription to Tradeovate to be able to
Hmm.
do replays and back test.
Hmm.
And every single day for over a year, closer to 2 years than 1 year, I would put it on 4 times speed.
Hmm.
And obviously, like a trade day is 8 hours. So at 4 times speed, it takes 2 hours to get through a full day.
Hmm.
And I would back test a strategy for NQ and ES every single day. And I did that for over a year. So if you add up all those hours, it is an insane amount of time. I basically had no life and just did that.
Well, and that's absolutely impressive. And of course, we joke about being addicts, and yes, perhaps we have addictive like type tendencies. But I have to say, when you're taking that level of commitment to research and study, that is not addictive behavior. That is very intentional, and I would say by far way above what normal traders will tend to do before they get into the point where they start actually trading. So you go through this process. You're testing out a bunch of strategies. Let's talk a little bit about where you landed. So at this point, have you settled on a particular strategy that works for you?
So the problem that I kept finding was every strategy would work sometimes, and there's no strategy that worked all the time.
Right.
And so it took a while, but slowly I started getting away from listening to what other people were saying and getting away from chat rooms and just, this is going to sound very arrogant, but thinking to myself, I'm better than everybody else and I can just figure this out by myself and I don't care about anyone or anything. I'm just going to do what I need to do. So I spent a lot of time trying to actually figure out what is the market doing? Why is this actually going against me? What actually works for me? And kind of where I landed, I'm going to skip a lot of stuff here, but where I landed was rather than having a set strategy and saying, okay, this strategy has a 60% win rate or a 70 or 80% win rate or whatever, I took it upon myself as the individual to say, me as a trader, regardless of what market I'm trading, what the market is doing, individually, if I take a trade, this is my success rate.
Okay.
So essentially, I became the strategy in my brain, being able to
Okay.
decipher whatever is happening instantaneously and figure out something that'll work is what became.
You have just ticked off a whole lot of people right now, and I mean I don't know, I can sort of feel it in the air because so many of us like we sit there and strategy is everything. You know what I've seen is traders probably spend 80% of their time as traders trying to figure out the latest greatest strategy, and you've just said no strategy. I'm the strategy. So what we like to do on the show is talk about what strategy looks like in the charts, and I'm curious as to how this is going to unfold. So let's go ahead and pull up your charts. Explain to us basically the best you can what it is that basically incites you to take a trade. What is it that you're actually looking for that is your quote unquote non strategy?
Okay. So in general, the first thing I'm going to look at is whether there's some sort of news or catalyst that's going to make the market just obviously move in a direction.
Mhm.
And when that happens, it doesn't really matter so much where I get in, as long as my risk management is fine. Those trades are simply going to add up.
Mhm.
So an example of that is last night, we've had the president talk about all sorts of things with tariffs, and when he says those things, the market reacts very quickly. And yeah, so I took a trade there. This is just an NQ short last night. So again, simply because news came out, he said something, the market started dropping, waited for a little bit of a pullback here, which it's not much of one, but I just just took the short anyway because it's going down. So that trade paid, and that's kind of like the first thing I'll look for. If I
Okay.
have a trade like that, those are usually the most, I don't want to say most successful, but they're the easiest to just get paid on. So I'll take a
Right.
trade like that.
Okay.
Um, Now, aside from things like that, I call that almost like a gimmick trade.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to like actual, like, okay, let's day trade. So
Mhm.
if you look here on the left, these are
Mhm.
TPO. This is a TPO chart.
Okay. Is
Oh,
this Exo charts,
Excel charts. This
or is
is,
it is TPO the software? I'm familiar. I don't use them, but I'm familiar with Exo charts, and they look just like that.
it's trade of eight.
Oh, it is through
Yeah.
TradeRate. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. If you download the desktop platform, you get access to TPO charts.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And so basically, TPO stands for time price opportunity.
Mhm.
And essentially, what it's doing is it's every 30-minute interval, it prints like an A, and then the next 30-minute interval prints Bs. And so what I use this for is to see what is the profile, what is the market looking like today? What's the personality of the market today specifically?
Mhm.
And so you'll see here, this is why I think the number one, if I was going to say a number one reason for why a lot of traders struggle is because most people follow like a trend following strategy.
Right.
If I zoom out like this, it looks like the market looks like it's trending, right? If I go to a 15-minute chart,
Right.
it looks like it's trending very strongly.
Mhm.
However, when you go look at these days individually, we can start with just wherever. This is what, the 5th of May 5th. The market opened up within the previous day's range, and it extended the bottom of the range a little bit and hovered around in the middle. This is a sideways day.
Right.
The next day, okay, it opened up below the next day's range. I could see how you would think this is a sell-off, but the market ranged on the day. The next day stayed within that range. The next day it opens up towards the top of the previous day's range, but it still, for the most part, ranges within the day, and so on and so forth. You finally get a day where it opens above, and this is not that much movement for the NASDAQ. It's still a pretty choppy day.
Right.
Same for the next. This is probably the one day where I would say, if you traded the first hour and a half, you would have a good, if you're using a trend following strategy, it would work out and pay you. But if you kept trading the rest of that day, it meanders, near the top of the range for the rest of the day. So long story short, for the most part, the market doesn't trend.
Right.
So I'd say
Yeah, I mean, you hear people say all the time that the market basically is in consolidation about it. I've heard 80% of the time. I've never mapped it or tested it, but that sounds very consistent with what you're showing us. Now, real quick, I want to point out. Marcelo asked the name of that volume indicator. You said is TPO.
It's correct, TPO, time price opportunity.
Okay, and they can find that on TradingView. I'm pretty sure I've seen it. I just don't remember where. That
yeah.
look for your time price and time price. What is it? Opportunity.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect. All right, go ahead, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break the rhythm there.
No, all good. So you'll see like a lot of days. Let's go back to here. Market opens up within the previous day's range. Someone could easily think this is a trending type of day just based on the initial movement, but you look at it and it just breaks the range on both sides, but it still hovers around the middle. So what I'm generally looking for, rather than trying to find any sort of a trending day or anything like that, I'm looking for just to get in somewhere on the outsides, close my trades somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
And then what really is crucial is, because I essentially call all these trades 50-50s. It's either going to break and continue down and sell off, or it's going to go back somewhere to the middle.
Okay.
So really what I'm looking for is just to have good risk management. And I think the risk management aspect is way, way more powerful, and you have more control over that in terms of being able to profit. And I've experimented with that quite a bit, actually, in using a coin flip. And I did that on a couple of accounts here. It's an adjusted martingale. So what I did was I literally, aside from today, because obviously the trade last night to me was a free sell-off there. But aside from that, I've been flipping a coin and using a 30 to 20. So if that trade profits, it makes $300. If it loses $200.
Okay.
And
so 1.5 risk reward.
Exactly. And just saying that these trades are more or less going to be 50-50, enough to where I'm probably not going to have 3 consecutive losses. So something to add, adjusted martingale, because what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm okay taking an $800 loss per session. Okay. So if I have the first trade loses, I'm out 200. The second trade loses, I'm out another 200. And the third trade loses, I'm out 400. So it'd be a total of 800. My rules for stopping on wins are I don't stop until I'm at $800 in profit or more.
Okay.
So that's what I've been doing with this account here. And it's actually up more than the accounts where I've actually been trying to take a trade, simply because when you manage your risk that way, again, you do have to be taking trades where your win rate is roughly 50%. Otherwise, you're going to have those losing streaks, and it's going to kill you. But that's where I say it. You are the strategy. Instead of using a specific strategy that you think has a certain win rate, you should be able to come into the market and decipher whatever it's doing and figure it out so that you can stay relatively at 50% all the time. And I think that's actually something that's very necessary in Apex accounts. You don't really have that much drawdown and wiggle room, especially myself trading on a 50K. I can't have 4 and 5 day, forget 4 and 5 day losing streaks. I can't have 4 and 5 trade losing streaks, or it's going to put my account in a very precarious position. So I keep my risk reward low. I usually don't go more than 1.5 because I just haven't needed to. And it's been very consistent.
Well, when you're talking about that 50-50, you have to make sure that you get that better than 1R return. And we've all experienced situations where the trade starts to go your way, and then it comes back and it takes you out. Now, you might have had a target that not you, but the trader might have had a target that's like 3R out. They may have been a successful trade at 2R or 1.5R versus going for all the way, going for that home run or whatever verbiage you like to use. So do you feel like keeping that risk to reward level smaller, you have a better chance at maintaining that 50% win rate?
Yes, definitely. So I think I'll say the game to profit is, or the simplest way, in my opinion, I say this to anyone who has never had a withdrawal and has not ever, been able to experience that. I think the easiest way to do it is to use a risk reward of 1 and make sure that stop loss and take profit. Don't make it astronomically big, but let's say on NASDAQ, you're using like a 30-30 or 50-50, whatever. And if it's an MNQ, 50-50 in terms of points. It's easier to use that 1-to-1. And even if you're wrong on trades, this is another thing. I think a lot of times people are right on trades and they think it's because of their analysis. You don't necessarily know, and nothing actually confirms that your analysis is correct. The trade could have just happened to go in your favor for whatever reason.
I've got to make the point here. If anybody has listened to Mark Douglas, Trading in the Zone, he makes this point over and over again, is that your trade may have won, but it didn't necessarily mean that your reason for making the trade was right. Exactly. And I think that's a confirmation of what you're trying to say here, is that it may or may not matter as long as you have an execution pattern or system. I guess I don't want to call it a strategy, but if what you're executing has that level of consistency, it doesn't matter the reason, as long as at the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month, you have the profits to show for
it. Right. And I think an interesting experiment I've done before is using the most common exponential moving average on a time chart. I'm not a fan of time charts personally, but put a 200 moving average and wait for the price to move to it, because it's either going to break it and sell off, or it's going to bounce off and go up. It's one or the other.
So really this revolves around just finding some sort of trigger point, a low or a high, or a bounce off the EMA or VWAP or whatever. I mean, it could literally be whatever, but you're just executing based on this expectation with your 1.5.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, how do you determine where you're going to put your risk? How much risk you're going to put on?
So that's where it gets interesting. So I have NQ and MNQ here. I look at structure because obviously you need to be trading with structure. I'm not saying go be an idiot and use a 50-point stop on NQ, but follow structure and adjust your trade size. Use 1 contract, 2 contracts, and MNQ up to 1 actual full NQ. Whatever you need or want to use. Right. You need to be able to calculate that position size so that your risk in terms of dollar amount stays relatively the same compared to what the structure says.
So ultimately, you are setting your stops at structure, and then you're basing your 1.5 around that, plus your position size around that. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. So how long have you actually been trading this way? How long has this been continually successful for you?
So when exactly did I start doing this? If I had to say like a hard date point, probably 2023 sometime.
So you've been trading this way for 2 years-ish.
Yeah.
And during that time, you've seen consistent success just with this same quote unquote non-strategy that you've been using.
Correct.
That's,
Correct.
I think that you've probably taken some of the wind out of the sails of a lot of people that are watching this, because like I said, most people, the golden, the holy grail is strategy. And I look, listening to how you explain this, there is absolutely a sense of strategy to what you're doing. You are finding, key component or key areas, key points. But you're not necessarily looking for what most people look for, which is, I think, where you deviate from what most people would consider to be a strategy. You're not looking for an inverted fair value gap or a change in state of delivery, or hitting a supplier demand level or whatever the case may be. You're just looking for something in the structure that says, this is where I want to make that decision. Flip the coin and see if you're right.
Exactly.
It's a I have to laugh, because this goes against the grain of everything that I know pretty much everybody has been told or heard. So what is this level of trading in this capacity? What's this done for you? How has this impacted your life in the last couple of years?
It's been good. My wife does not have to necessarily work. We travel to Spain for a good month every year, and income is fine, just because of trading. I don't need that much, honestly. I pretty much have everything I need financially speaking already, even without trading income. So a lot of it, in all honesty, I started funds for my kids. Whenever
Right.
they turn 21, they'll be able to go crazy. Hopefully not go crazy, but
Right.
do whatever they want with it.
Maybe a few parental parameters in place, but yeah, I'm with you. That's awesome. Now, when you travel, do you trade while you're traveling, or do you just
You
take that
know,
time away?
I did once, and I didn't like. I'm picky with my screens and my computer, and I didn't have a good experience the first time I did it. So I've just said, nah, if I'm gonna travel, I'm just gonna relax and chill.
There's no vacation.
Yeah.
Got it. So where do you go from here? I mean, at this point, you've sort of created your baseline life. You've got the fundamentals covered. What most people would consider a highly successful scenario. You've got trust for the kids. You've got the wife not working. You basically get to choose where and when you do work. Where do you go from here?
Just continue. Merrily we roll along, I would say I could increase not account size, sorry, the number of accounts I trade,
Sure.
but I'm comfortable. I'm not.
You I can hear traders and the ghosts of many traders in the background going, no, why don't you do more? And again, that's for so many of us our downfall. I mean, I can guarantee you that's what happened to me last week when I lost my accounts. It's that look, everybody talks about that slow and steady, but in the back of their mind, I think for most traders, that slow and steady means slow and steady until ... I mean, there's something that's going to trigger them to want to increase or grow or
Right.
develop or scale or whatever the case may be. It's really rare to find somebody who's, I'm good where I am. I love what I do. I love how I do it. I don't have the stress. I don't have the strain. I honestly don't care what all of you people say about your quote unquote strategy. I do things my way. I mean, this is like the Christian lifestyle of trading. And like, I've interviewed hundreds of traders and I've literally never heard this before.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll honestly, I'll die on the sword with the whole, like, I literally, so we skipped over this. I went to London to take a level 7 course, which is essentially, it's a master's equivalent degree
Okay.
in applied financial trading. And my whole practical task and term paper that I did at the end of it was literally just prove that risk management is more important than strategy. So I had to use like a random trade generator and submit that so they knew what trades I was going to take beforehand. And then I literally just took trades for, I can't remember how long, I think it was 6 months, on just random coin flip trades and just doing risk management and showing that it was successful. And that was literally my
That's
coursework.
that's absolutely wild. They gave you a master's for this essentially, or the equivalent? That's wild. Okay, look, for those of you out there, Christian made the comment. He's going to rewatch this right after. He's trying to do a lot of what you're doing. John is a regular watcher of the show, very active in the chat. John, thank you for chiming in on that. I can't tell you the just the absolute contrast between what I typically hear from traders and what you're saying. You are absolutely a unique anomaly in the world of trading, and this has been absolutely enlightening. And the lesson here isn't don't abandon your strategy, I don't think. I think the lesson here is clean up your risk management,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
for all intents and purposes, he hits a level, he flips a coin, and his risk management is the only thing that maintains his edge. So where do you land in that? I mean, there's lessons to be learned. How can this be applied to your current existing strategy as well? And I think ultimately that's really where we get to is, what bits and pieces from here and from here and from here can I take? It's not necessarily about finding that new strategy. It's about cleaning up what we've got and developing it further and making things work. Listen, like I said, this has absolutely been fascinating. For the record, I didn't know a lot of what Christian was going to share with us today going into this. I just knew it was going to be different. And so I got to tell you, Christian, absolutely enlightening and hopefully very, very helpful for those viewers out there. Let us know in the chat. Come back after you had a chance to test some of this out. If you choose to do some of this, and let us know in the chat how it works. Even if you come back a week or two later, let us know. Christian, absolutely a pleasure chatting with you today. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I could absolutely do this forever. I'm not gonna. We are giving away the 3 evaluations from this show. So if you have not done so already, make sure to fill out the form right there in the chat. And we will be off next Monday from Memorial Day. Enjoy that time with your friends, family, and don't forget the meaning of Memorial Day for those who lost their lives in service. So let's have a moment for them as well. I look forward to seeing all of you 2 weeks from now on the next episode of the Trader Bacon Show. Thanks for joining the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Make sure to join us next time, Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern.